Hi, everyone. Welcome to a positively balanced conversation. We have Jessica and Rachel joining us today, where we're going to talk about sleep and hormones across the lifespan. And really, we're just going to discuss their connection and what you need to know, because it's so important for you to be able to have some understanding of these two topics and how they relate, so that you can have a good, educated conversation with your healthcare provider. So, Jessica, Rachel, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
So ladies, let's just dive right in. Both of us, we're moms, so we'll kind of start right there in that lifespan. Sleep is sometimes hard to come by, right?
Yeah.
And it varies in length, duration, quality. But then we also see that kind of affect our hormones and the hormones that are changing postpartum. So I want to hear from you ladies, maybe some things that you realized or experienced during your, let's talk about those first 6 months postpartum, maybe a correlation between your hormones and your sleep at all.
Rachel, go for it.
Yeah, so one of the things you see a lot in the health and fitness world is people recommend having like a bedtime schedule and going to bed at the same time, and obviously staying asleep would be ideal. Waking up at the same time. And I always just kind of chuckle at like how impossible that is. Whether it's I'm trying to squeeze in some like quiet time or clean up the house a little bit, or the kid just doesn't want to go to sleep. There's no way to have like a consistent bedtime for myself when the baby doesn't even have a consistent bedtime. And so that continues to impact postpartum recovery immediately in that immediate 6-week period, but even after that and beyond. And how do you continue to function as a human being and go back to work and be a happy person when you don't have that time to kind of reset?
Truth. Jessica, what did you experience?
Yeah, I agree. Kind of same thing before, and even throughout my entire pregnancy. Of course, I was coaching and I was still getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go teach my classes and everything. And so bedtime routine was kind of easy for me then, because Darren and I both went to bed at the same time. We got up fairly close to the same time. He was up a little bit earlier than me, but it was easy for me to carry that routine before baby. But like Rachel said, after baby, and even in the time after baby's born, after the 6 weeks, after that 4th trimester is over, it's really hard because, baby doesn't want to go to bed at the same time, or it depends kind of on nap schedule and what their daytime sleep looks like, and then cleaning up the house at the end of the night. And I found that this 8 to 10 o'clock period at night is sort of like me time. So whether I choose to color in my coloring book app, or watch a show on TV, or browse Amazon, or do the dishes, or whatever it may be, it's kind of hard to keep that consistent routine. The only thing that's consistent is brushing my teeth and taking my contacts out.
Priorities. Hey, I like it. We all have those things that we're like, for me, it's like, okay, I have to have food. I will get hangry. And there's like in the morning, I have to have my banana before I have my coffee, because I will get hungry. There's like little bitty things that, I understand. No, thank you, ladies. I like what each of you said, because it's not predictable. There's no,
Right.
get your 8 hours of sleep or have that set routine, because baby wants what baby wants and baby gets what baby gets, because the tiny human is screaming at you, right?
And even at 9 months now, when baby's starting to sleep through the night, okay, yeah, that's great. Baby's starting to sleep through the night, but I still have to get up and pump because I'm
Yeah.
still engorged. And so it's like, yes, I may be able to get like a 9-hour span of sleep, or even 7. That would be great. But it's like other hormonal factors go into that. And I'm producing milk still, so I can't sleep a full 7. I don't know.
I love
Well, and
that.
I always love
That's a good
that.
point.
They're like, oh, just get your partner to help you. And I'm like, with their useless nipples? Like, what do you, like, what? Because even if, like, okay, so best scenario, my husband gets the baby, brings her to me, she latches and I get to sleep, I guess. Or there's a bottle and I have to pump. Like, neither of them are great. Thank you for saving me the trip down the hallway.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate it. Like, there's not much help to be offered, to be quite frank. I mean, formula feeding also, I mean, obviously is an option, and then it can be a bit more 50-50. But in the event that's not the route you've gone, like, cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you guys made a good point about like the hormones, right? Because hormones are helping you to produce the milk. You've had that, drop off of certain hormones, increase of certain hormones. So it can get kind of interesting. So let's talk about, because, we just talked about how we have to get up to pump, get up with kid, whatever it might be. So that is affecting things like cortisol, things like our feel good serotonin, like all these different things that help us be happy moms, happy women. And so it can kind of affect our mood, which is, I think, really, really important to point out for women. While our sleep is not consistent, there is going to be effect on our mood, which is because of our hormones, because of the lack of sleep, and it kind of goes hand in hand. So being able to have those conversations with your doctor in a way that's not like, oh my goodness, like my postpartum depression is like terrible, because that does happen as well, but also having the conversation of sleep and maybe getting some tips, whether it's from your midwife, your health provider, of, okay, what are some things that maybe I can do to help support my body during this time of maybe not great sleep.
And I think it's important to note that, like, one question, I get all the time is like, how do I lose the baby weight? How do I lose the baby weight? And those hormones, the increase in cortisol and the stress that your body's under, and then, the prolactin and everything to produce the milk is going to cause you to hang on to that weight, which in turn might impact your mood and might impact your postpartum depression and any emotion you have tied into the body image and your expectations of weight loss in that fourth trimester and beyond. So all of those hormones play such a big role, and then it just ends up being this cycle, like this repeating cycle, because we end up in this body image issue, and then the depression, and then so on and so forth, and it just keeps going.
Well,
Yeah,
and to
that's a good
add
point.
to that point as well, nighttime is when our bodies detox. That's when our cells regenerate. That's when our digestive system has a chance to have a break, and our bodies have a chance to focus on other things to give us that recovery that we need to have the energy for the next day. And if we're getting up and we're still waking for 20 to 40 to 60 minutes a night, that's a big interruption, and things aren't going to reset like they should if you're getting that full 6 to 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And I know many women are like, oh my goodness, so because I'm not sleeping right, my hormones are all over the place, I'm never going to lose weight, or I'm never going to feel like myself again, I'm never going to have energy, never going to feel halfway coherent because I'm so exhausted. And it can feel almost, I don't want to say overwhelming and like there's not a light at the end of the tunnel, but it kind of goes back to those cycles of, you were just talking about how at 9 months your baby's finally starting to go through, a full sleep at night. There is that light at the end of the tunnel. However, maybe having conversations with your doctor and midwife of some support during that time of challenge can be really, really helpful, if not just mentally, because you can have those conversations, and emotionally, but also physically.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
talk about, we've talked about postpartum, which we're all really passionate about, but then you go into, maybe you are a mom who has had a baby later on in life, or you're in that kind of midlife transition whenever your hormones are not quite to menopause, but they're letting you know that they're changing. Dr. Stacey Sims has a lot of information about that as well. And Rachel and I were just talking about the book Roar. It's a great resource for women at any stage. But whenever we're dealing with even that midlife transition of, okay, let's kind of almost prime the body for menopause, sleep can get distracted as well. So I know that some of us are behind that. Some of us have studied some of that. Maybe some of us are in that. But I wanted to have that conversation with you guys as well, and your experiences either with clients or patients, or personally.
So obviously I'm not there personally, but it's just kind of eye-opening to see the vast majority of women in that menopausal period and leading up to that are experiencing sleep disturbances. It's not just a one-off thing. It's the vast majority, and it's for a multitude of reasons. Mostly that drop off that we were talking about in progesterone and estrogen, and it causes a slew of challenges.
No, and that's a good point. Basically, it's kind of like the body, I don't want to say it's a prep start, but it's basically a prep start. It's like letting you know, hey, there is another change coming. So people start to feel that, and they also start to resist it. Rachel, we were talking about that. It's like it's denial. We're like, we're not to that point yet.
Yeah.
And it's like we fight it, especially as women, right? Because we're like, no, I'm not old. I'm not over the hill. And no, you're neither of those. You're not. You're in the stage that you are in right now. But we do need to have those conversations, especially with our healthcare providers about, hey, my sleep is decreasing. Hey, I've noticed some different irregularities in my periods, or how my mood has been. That's the great part about maybe even tracking your cycles, is because you're a little bit more familiar with this. But definitely through the midlife time, a great resource would be Beth. She's be her contributor. She does a lot with midlife mamas, and finding people like her is a great place to be and to find a support and help.
I'm excited about
to add.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's important to be aware of those changes as they start to approach. And it's also really important to tune into how you're feeling. And are you snappier? Are you, any little irregularities that you're like, you stop and pause and you're like, whoa, that wasn't me. That's not me. That's where it's important to recognize that, hey, maybe sleep, I'm not getting as much, maybe hormones. That's when it's a really important thing to have that conversation with your provider and your doctor, or even a naturopathic doctor or a holistic doctor, because sometimes ladies don't want to go the medical route. And sometimes, especially in some circles that I'm in, some people don't trust that medical route. And so they do want that holistic side, and herbal support is so important, and mental support is so important. And it's just so important to be aware of those things so that way you can address it.
No, I agree. Rachel, are you going to say something?
Yeah, and I think it's important to address some of these through nutrition as well, that I think so often gets discounted. And in the postpartum phase, we just like chug iced coffee. I know that's like people are frequently shoving food in my face, like, hey, you haven't had anything, it's 3 p.m. And then like, why can't I sleep? Because I just chugged iced coffee as a meal, like all day long. And then we continue that trend, and then we get busy and shuffling kids around through that middle age point, and we're not eating. So like, why are we so exhausted, and why aren't we catching up? We're not fueling our bodies well during that time. And then how do we adjust our nutrition as our hormones adjust, to better suit our bodies, and enough protein and enough carbohydrates to make sure that we're getting the proper nutrition to balance those hormones out and support our bodies in the way we need.
And I love what both of you said, because really building some awareness of, what cycle you might be going into, or that there's going to be a change in your cycle, or a change in kind of the pattern that you're used to, and being able to be aware, like you just said, Rachel, of maybe the adjustments that need to be made during that time, which is a great segue now into menopause. So I've worked with a lot of menopausal ladies before. I, parked at an earlier stage in women's health, but it's interesting as we go into menopause, the changes that occur. and how maddening and frustrating it is for a lot of women. You know, they start to lose that sleep because of the hormone changes. They start to have the hot flashes. They start to have that energy drop off and so many other things. And it's hard to talk about, especially with active adults, active moms, active older women. They're going to fight the power, right? They're going to just push they're going to make it happen. And being able to have those conversations, whether it's with another woman or another healthcare professional of your choosing, which Jessica made a great point, whatever that healthcare professional looks like for you. Having those conversations whenever you start to notice, this is starting to happen. Okay, what adjustments do I need to make?
I don't have any experience with menopausal women. It was a taboo subject. So like my grandma never talked about it, and my family hasn't really talked about it. And all of my mom's and aunt's ages that are like, you know, they're in that premenopausal kind of state. And so I have no experience here. So I'm kind of interested to learn as well.
I love your honesty, because I see that so much with women that I talk to, especially older women, because I don't know if I don't think that it's necessarily a pride thing. I think it is a cultural thing and kind of like you said, a taboo where you're like, oh, I'm not at that stage, you know, like that's not the thing.
I
Yeah.
also think a lot of kind of uncomfortable things come along with menopause. Like no one wants to talk about hot flashes and the sweat. And suddenly your hormones are changing, so your body odor is changing, and that can be embarrassing. And you know, like vaginal dryness and changes in sex life and changes in hormones and changes in your pelvic floor and muscle strength and things like that. A lot of these come with some really, I don't know, uncomfortable body functions that we don't typically talk about. And you partner that with the generational things and kind of the cultural things, then you just get a storm of, you know, nobody wants to talk about this stage of life. And I hope that changes as our generation ages.
No, that's a great point. And I think that having conversations, even with us, you know, we are younger individuals, but being open to have those conversations with those older than us and learning from them and kind of almost starting that dialogue. It might be awkward for us even at the point where we're like, yeah, let's talk about, you know, vaginal dryness and have you had a decrease in sex drive? But we do need to know these things. And just like anything else, being able to learn from them, being able to educate them if we have the knowledge, being able to start those conversations, making them more comfortable having those conversations can go a long way. And being able to provide any resources, or if, you know, one of us, because we all are all in either the fitness or health field, we know somebody that we're like, hey, this person is awesome working with women in the menopausal stage of life. You need to go talk to this person. And just connecting them with that ray of hope, that connection, that person can go a long, long way.
And I think another contributing thing to this like lack of conversation, and I think it's great that so many of us now are kind of digging into this, but there's just a lack of evidence. And I'm curious, and maybe we could, someone can mention in the comments if they have experienced this, but I don't think there's been a lot of treatment. I don't think there's been a lot of resources. You go to your OB for your like annual exam and you're like, oh, think I'm getting to that stage. Okay, here's some like estrogen replacement. Have a good day. And so there hasn't been, just like anything in women's health, there's not as much evidence as we'd like there to be. Most science is done on men. And so I don't think there's been a lot of solutions for women that are menopausal or even perimenopausal, and how to handle that optimally and support them in that transition.
No, and I love what you said, because that is very true across the lifespan in women's health. And you and I have both done research, Rachel, in this, and it's hard to find good data. It's hard to find good support research. It's so hard to do that. I like this conversation because we did cover three main aspects in women's health. or stage, their lifespan. And so hopefully this will help to start conversations. And maybe, like you said, if somebody has experienced some research or some lack of education, maybe mentioning that in the comments. We are all connected really well with some different healthcare professionals, and we love to hook you up with them. But if anybody has any last comments, we'll go ahead and wrap up.
I think you made a great point when you said comfort. I think comfort talking about any of these topics is huge. I mean, you have to be with somebody that you trust. You have to be with somebody who maybe asks the right questions, or who is able to help you express what you're feeling, because you may not know what you're even feeling when it comes to your changes. And I think that's so important to go even earlier than motherhood, into like girls who are just coming into their cycle and just coming into that woman stage. You know, it's so very important, especially for those girls, to feel comfortable talking about these things. And I think it needs to be something that is not taboo anymore. I think it needs to be comfortable across the board from 13 to 80.
And I think that we're going to have a special conversation about like that 13 to 19 stage, because that could be, we could park a bus on that for a good minutes, I'm sure. But
let's do it.
Yeah, deal. Next one. But thank you, ladies, for being a part of this Positively Balanced conversation. I enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys did too. And I hope that we started some conversations from the viewers who watch this as well. And I hope that you guys have a fantastic day, and we will see you next time.